Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'll be reading 3 true scary encounters from Reddit. In these stories, we will talk about a possible mimic, a very disturbing camping encounter, sightings of not deer, and a grandparent's house with a very dark basement. Now, if you do hear some grumbling in the background, just know it's my dog who's snoring at my feet right now. And if you do like this video, please like and subscribe. So let's begin with story number 1. So, my sister had a weird experience last night that she has been texting me about all morning. She and her boyfriend have a couple of dogs. Both will come and tap on the door to be let into the room. Well, last night, my sister and her boyfriend heard the taps at the door, and she quickly got up to let the dog in, and even called him when she opened the door. However, her boyfriend quickly pointed out that both of the dogs were already in the room, and when she opened the door, she didn't see anything. She quickly closed the door, panicked about a strange animal possibly hiding in their house. My sister said, "I still hear the tapping." And as soon as she said that, it stopped. They investigated their doors. They do have a dog door, but they would have heard it, as the house was silent this time of night. Does anyone know or have any experience with mimics copying animals? Or any other ideas of what it could have been? This is a side note to the story. One commenter on this post recommended looking up Navajo folklore to possibly give some insight on what she encountered. Now, the user did agree that upon researching Navajo folklore, it did possibly explain what the sister encountered on another night, when she saw what she could describe as not deer. The user messaged me personally and explained that she was driving home very late at night when she saw a creature, almost like a deer, but way bigger, and the shape was different too. So this concludes the first story, and now we'll move on to story number 2. Every summer, like clockwork, my friend's grandparents would leave town for a week and trust her to stay in the house alone. Usually a few of us would come over so she wouldn't have to sleep there by herself. But this time she grinned and said, "Let's have a party." We were in 7th grade. The party was just all of us crammed into an oversized sleepover high on junk food and freedom. Her grandparents' house was old. The kind of old that creaked even when no one was moving. 3 stories. The basement stairs opened directly off the living room. No door, just a dark staircase that dropped into the ground like an open mouth. Upstairs were 3 bedrooms and a bathroom. The air always felt slightly colder up there. That night, we were in one of the upstairs bedrooms changing into our swimsuits, laughing too loud, not thinking about anything except getting into the pool. We left all of our bags and clothes scattered across the room and ran outside. After a few hours swimming, we came back in, dripping water across the hardwood floors, and headed upstairs to change. One of the girls grabbed the bedroom handle. It didn't turn. She jiggled it harder. It's locked. At first we thought someone was joking, but then we noticed something else. The lights were off. That room didn't connect to a wall switch. The only way to turn the lights off was by pulling the string on the ceiling fan. You had to be inside the room to do it. All of our stuff was in there, and none of us had a key, and the locks in that house were old and stubborn, nearly impossible to mess with. No one would have locked it. There was no reason to. Still, The door didn't budge. After arguing about it for a few minutes, we convinced ourselves we'd deal with it later. Her grandparents would be back in a few days anyway, and it felt easier to ignore it than to think too hard. She gave us oversized t-shirts from her grandpa's closet to sleep in, and we piled into the living room to watch scary movies. The irony didn't hit us at the time. Eventually, one by one, everyone fell asleep. Everyone except me and 3 others. The house had gone quiet. That deep, late-night quiet where every tiny sound feels amplified. That's when we saw Ed. He slowly stood up from the couch. His eyes were closed. He moved stiffly, like he was being pulled forward by something we couldn't see. Without a word, he walked toward the basement stairs. And I should say this. That house had been in her family for generations. People had died there. In the basement, they kept urns, multiple urns. Ed reached the top of the basement stairs and stopped. He stood there, completely still, facing down into the darkness. He didn't sway, he didn't blink, he just stood there. Minutes passed. None of us moved, and none of us spoke. It felt like if we made a sound, something at the bottom of those stairs would answer. Then, slowly, without opening his eyes, Ed turned around, walked back to the couch, and laid down. Like nothing had happened. We didn't sleep much after that, but eventually exhaustion won. In the morning, we asked him what he was doing at the stairs, and he looked genuinely confused. He didn't remember getting up, and he didn't sleepwalk. That answer sat wrong in my stomach. We tried to brush it off, and daylight makes everything feel smaller. A few hours later, parents started arriving to pick everyone up. Amber's parents were first. She walked toward the front door, then froze. On the floor, right in front of the door, was her bag. We were absolutely certain her belongings were still in that room. She was still wearing her wet swimsuit under one of those oversized t-shirts. If her bag had been downstairs the night before, she would have changed. The bedroom door upstairs was still locked, and the light was still off. No one could explain how her things got there. At that point, the excuses started to crumble. Everyone left eventually, and the house felt bigger once it emptied out. Later that day, her sister asked if she could babysit her baby nephew. He was only 7 or 8 months old, just for a few hours. My friend didn't want to be alone in that house again. She asked me to stay the night, and I said yes. The baby was dropped off. We played with him for hours until he finally fell asleep in a pack-and-play in the living room. We put on a movie, and despite everything, we both drifted off. I don't know what time it was when we woke up, but we woke up at the exact same moment. Not slowly and not groggy. We woke up in a panic. Both of us shot upright and looked at the pack-and-play. It was empty. The baby was gone. The kind of fear that hits you when something is deeply, horribly wrong. That's what flooded my body. We tore through the house calling his name even though he was too young to answer. We searched the kitchen, the bathroom, the basement stairs, refusing to look too far down. Then we ran upstairs. We reached the locked bedroom. My friend grabbed the handle. It turned. The door creaked open. Inside, the lights were on. And there, in the middle of the room that had been locked the night before, the room where you had to physically pull the string to turn on the light, was the baby. Safe and sitting there. We didn't question it. We didn't try to rationalize it. We didn't even go back downstairs for our things. We called her mom to come get us, and we refused to stay another minute in that house. Years have passed. I don't talk to any of the people who were there that night anymore. But every time I'm in that city, I drive past that house. And even from the street, I feel it. Like something inside is still awake. So this concludes the second story, and now we'll move on to story number 3. To start this off, I should say I'm not the best storyteller. I've read a lot of posts on here, and most people write these way better than I probably will, so just bear with me. I'm also going to change the names of everyone involved for privacy. I've thought about posting this for a while, but every time I start typing it out, I end up deleting it because part of me still thinks maybe there's a normal explanation for what happened and we just didn't figure it out. The thing that keeps bothering me, though, is that 4 of us were there, and we all remember the same parts. This happened during the summer of 2025. I live near the Appalachian Mountains, in the northwest corner of North Carolina, and if you've ever been out there, you know how huge the forests are. There are miles of woods with old logging roads, dirt trails, and random clearings people sometimes camp in. You can go a long time without seeing another person. I've always liked exploring places like that, even though it's probably not the smartest idea sometimes. A few friends asked if I wanted to go on a camping trip for about 6 days, somewhere deeper in the mountains than we normally go. I didn't really have anything planned that week, so I said yes pretty quickly. Looking back, I kind of wish I had thought about it more before agreeing. The day we left, I packed clothes, my tent, sleeping bag, and basic camping stuff. The plan was to meet at a clearing one of my friends had found online. It was about a 45-minute drive from where I lived. The other 3 had already left earlier that afternoon, so I was the last one heading out. While I was driving, we were on FaceTime, and they asked if I could stop somewhere and grab food for the trip. So I stopped at a small grocery store and picked up hot dogs, potatoes, chips, marshmallows, and some other stuff we could cook over the fire. When I walked back out to my car, the sky had that orange color it gets right before the sun sets behind the mountains. The 3 friends I was meeting were people I've known for years. I'll call the first one Jake. He was the one who planned the trip and was always finding weird trails or camping spots online. The second friend, I'll call him Liam. He liked camping, but wasn't really the exploring, abandoned, or remote places type. The third friend I'll call Marcus. Marcus was usually the one who brought alcohol on trips and convinced people to do dumb things. Eventually, the paved road turned into gravel, and then into a narrow dirt road through the trees. Around that time, my phone lost signal, which didn't surprise me because that happens all the time out here. By the time I got to the clearing, it was almost dark. Jake's truck and Liam's car were parked near the tree line, and Marcus had already started a fire. Everything felt normal at first. We set up tents, cooked some food, and sat around the fire talking for hours. Jake and Marcus decided they were just going to sleep by the fire, and Liam and I set up our tents a little farther away. The first 2 days of the trip were honestly normal. We explored some old trails during the day and hung around the campsite at night. The woods were quiet, but in a normal way. You could hear crickets, wind in the trees, and sometimes animals somewhere far away. Night 3 is when things started feeling strange. We were sitting around the fire again when Liam suddenly stopped talking and said he heard something in the trees behind us. Jake grabbed a flashlight and shined it out there. After a few seconds, the light landed on what looked like a deer. standing between two trees, maybe 40 feet away. The weird thing was it wasn't moving. It was just standing there staring at us. Most deer run as soon as they see people, but this one didn't react at all. The longer we looked at it, the more uncomfortable it felt. It looked really thin, and its head was tilted slightly to the side like it was studying us. Around that time, I started noticing a smell in the air. At first it was faint, but it kept getting stronger. It smelled rotten, like something dead nearby. That heavy, sour smell that sticks in your nose. The smell seemed like it was coming from the direction of the trees where the deer was standing. After a moment, the deer stepped sideways, but the way it moved looked stiff and awkward. Then it turned and walked back into the woods. Not long after that, the smell slowly faded. Nobody talked much after that, and eventually we all went to sleep. Sometime later in the night, I woke up because I heard leaves crunching outside my tent. At first, I thought one of the guys was walking around the campsite. Then I heard a voice quietly saying my name and telling me to come here. It sounded like Jake. I almost answered, but something about the way the voice sounded felt wrong. The tone was flat and strange. I unzipped my tent a little and looked out toward the fire and saw Jake and Marcus still asleep where they had been earlier. A few seconds later, I heard footsteps moving through the campsite. They circled around my tent slowly and then stopped right next to it. Through the tent fabric, I could hear breathing, and it was really close. Then that same rotten smell came back, way stronger this time. It smelled like something dead was standing right outside the tent. After a moment, the footsteps started moving again. I heard them cross the campsite towards Liam's tent, and then eventually head back toward the trees. After that, everything went quiet again, but I didn't sleep the rest of the night. When the sun started coming up, I got out of my tent, and Jake was already awake. I asked him if he had been walking around during the night, and he looked confused and said no. Liam came out of his tent a few minutes later, looking pale, and immediately asked if Marcus had been outside calling for him during the night. But Marcus was still asleep. Jake ended up finding footprints near the edge of the clearing. They looked almost human, but not quite. They were long and narrow, and the toes were pressed deeper into the dirt than the heels, like whatever made them was walking strangely. The tracks went from the woods, circled around every one of our tents, and then straight back into the forest. We packed up that same morning and left the campsite days earlier than we planned. The walk back to the cars was quiet, and nobody really said much. Even now, none of us can agree on exactly what we saw that night. But we all remember hearing the voices. And none of us have gone back to that place since. Now this concludes the 3 stories I'm sharing with you today. Thank you so much for listening. If you did enjoy this video, please like and consider subscribing. Everybody, please stay safe and see you next time.